For an amendment, Senator. I have Senator Batters followed by Senator Sinclair.
Thank you. Minister, you spoke in your opening statement today about, quote, cooperative and flexible federalism. But last month, after that, the Quebec provincial government indicated that it didn't want to allow any homegrown marijuana plants. You seem to be clear in your view that Quebec could not impose that type of restriction. You had said, quote, there are limits to the restrictions that provinces can impose on homegrown marijuana. And a CBC article actually quoted you as saying, quote, where there are other pieces of legislation or proposed pieces of legislation that would seek to frustrate the purposes of the federal legislation, then there are concerns there, quote. Last week at committee, I asked your justice officials about this. I asked, would Quebec be allowed to prohibit the growing of marijuana plants in each household or not? Your official seemed to back off your stronger media statements of last month with her answers. And now today, you also seem to be backpedaling on that particular issue. So what changed last month since your comments that you made in the media?
Sorry, Senator, I disagree with your characterization of my backing off comments.
Were you misquoted?
I believe that my comments then and my comments now are entirely consistent in terms of federal legislation that we're putting in place in Bill C-45 and the purposes contained in this legislation. We have provided the ability for provinces and territories to put in place their own legislation that seeks to perhaps increase the age, to reduce the number of plants that can be cultivated at home. Quebec has chosen, and other jurisdictions have chosen, to introduce legislation that takes it down to zero. As I said here, it is not the intention of the federal government to challenge the provinces and territories in their legislative abilities. Certainly, there is the potential for an individual to challenge a particular jurisdiction's legislation around the inability to access or to grow cannabis at home, and that is their prerogative to do that. The courts will provide direction to see whether or not there's a conflict of laws, and if there is a conflict of laws, then the federal law will prevail.
Thank you. Senator Sinclair, followed by Senator